Thank you so much for that, Chris. Overnight, we had a little bit of light snow coming across southern Ontario. Not epic snow, but still enough to cause some backlogs with regard to traffic. But let's turn it over to Kevin and see what it's like in Kitchener today as a result of those slick weather conditions. So today, how much more snowfall can we expect? Just a trace generally now from across southern Ontario and across the 401 corridor until you get to Kingston through Ottawa and Montreal, set to see still the highest amounts of the day throughout that region. What about the temperatures? Because this is a big story this afternoon. It still feels like about -7 this afternoon in Toronto. However, the deep cold remains in place overnight. And so we have wind chills even by the evening. We're down into the minus mid-teens and then overnight into the minus mid-20s. This is likely to be the coldest spell of the week, of the work week at least. Tomorrow's daytime high in Toronto is still -11. And then after that, we'll start to see the clearing and the warming trend. In fact, there's indication that by next week we could really be in a mild spell. So with the clearing, we don't have any weather to speak of, but what's happening is that the temperatures are really rising significantly, so that's good. So we're tapping in to a little bit more of the warmth, and this low doesn't hurt either as it draws up more of a southwesterly flow for us. By this time next week, it'll be far, far warmer, we expect. In fact, that warmth could even start to build in as early as this weekend. So definitely seeing some changes with regard to the temperatures. But what about the here and now? Let's turn it over to Kevin in Kitchener. She's in there somewhere. Great idea, though, to have that shield on there, right? Let's turn it over to our weather now because we do have still some precipitation. We would not expect to see for the most of southern Ontario more than a couple more centimeters of snowfall, but then Kingston, Ottawa, and Montreal, due to the timing of this low, really the bulk of the day today will see the accumulation, and we won't see epic snow, but less than 5 centimeters. The wind chills this afternoon still sticking in that -6, -7 range. Then through tomorrow morning and through the overnight, we've got them still reaching close to -30 overnight. So definitely lots of cold air in place overnight. This is really the coldest spell that we will see. We can get through that period. Then beyond that, the temperatures will begin to warm. But there is clearing, there's cooling. This afternoon, we're really seeing high pressure building in. And so as a result, we don't have any weather to speak of. But the temperatures are going to be cold overnight because of that dome of high pressure over us. However, later this week, we'll start to bring in more of a flow from the south and helps to bring up our temperatures. This low stays well off to the north, not expecting any influence from that. But again, another ridge of high pressure building in by the end of the week. However, that one's expected to start bringing up our temperatures. So in Toronto, look at Saturday, 1, we're at 0. In fact, we might even still be in that above freezing range for next week as we look at daytime highs that are going to be pretty warm. A low-pressure system that skirted by southern Ontario beginning last night has brought a little bit of snowfall, and we might have a little bit more yet to come throughout the day for the GTA, but we would not be expecting more than, say, a couple of centimeters of snow. That kind of cold, it really makes you think about the most vulnerable of our populations have to deal with that cold weather. Well, it's a good point. We do need more centers like that, don't we? Because the cold, of course, it can be dangerous, and obviously, as Kasia just reported, they are deadly. The clearing, the cooling, that's the story as we head through the rest of the day after this little bit of snow that we're experiencing. But again, the temperatures being the big story through the overnight. So we have wind chills in the minus mid-20s. Beyond that, the temperatures begin to warm, thankfully. And the temperatures, even by next week, we could be talking about values close to freezing or even maybe above freezing for daytime highs. So we have a couple of ridges of high pressure in place. There's a low that wants to develop to the north, and it appears to stay to the north with some flurries, maybe grazing up toward Kapuskasing and Timmins, and then southern Ontario back into the ridge of high pressure by Friday. Tomorrow, the coldest day of the work week. The overnight low is obviously dangerous, and then we get into Sunday, Monday, but look at the temperatures. We're sitting above and close to freezing, and that will be the same case as we look toward Hamilton. The temperatures this week are warming. However, between now and about Wednesday, we still have to get through another spell of cold air. And also we have seen some snow from a low pressure system that actually originated in the U.S. by the time we get into the end of the week. So how much more snow is there to come? Not that much. In fact, across southern Ontario, for the most part, we've got less than 2 more centimeters of snow to go. But Kingston, Ottawa, and Montreal are just seeing the low pressure system mostly throughout the day today. So at most, we'll see about 5 centimeters of snow headed that way. -7 wind chill this afternoon. And generally, that's what we see across the GTA. As we get through this period, beyond this, the temperatures begin to warm. Now, 5 years ago today, so here's how this week is going to shape up. We've got the first part of the week cold, the second part of the week warming up. So we've just got to get through this cold spell that we are in right now. I'll have more details for you on the weather forecast in just a moment, though. But Michelle Mackey is on a very special assignment. Here are details. All right, we'll be looking forward to that. Thank you so much, Michelle. In terms of snowfall and what more we can expect, less than 2 more centimeters to come throughout the day, I should say. But Kingston, Ottawa, and Montreal, a range of 2 to 5 by the time it's all said and done. We're essentially seeing the backside or the top side of the low pressure system, which originated in the U.S. It's just grazing by southern Ontario, and then off it goes into the Atlantic provinces. But we are going to be seeing some colder temperatures overnight tonight as that ridge of high pressure builds in once again. Cold in the evening in the minus mid-teen wind chills, and then the -20s is where it will feel through the overnight, even approaching -30 in some cases. Despite the sunshine and the lack of weather, we're not really going to be breaking out of, say, the -11, -12 range for the GTA tomorrow. It's beyond that. It's Wednesday, Thursday, Friday that we'll start to see an impact of the warmer flow that we'll be getting. In fact, the west is already beginning to experience that, but all of that warmth is starting to build in across most of the country with a Pacific influence. By Saturday in Toronto, we're at 1 degree versus -11 for tomorrow, the cold. And then on Sunday, Monday, oh, sure, we might see a little bit of flurry activity coming through, but the temperatures are far, far more moderate than they are into tomorrow. Hamilton, -11 for Tuesday. Sheryl and Jacqueline with you for your developing stories. In this segment, we want to talk about who's warm and who is getting cold. We're also going to talk about, did you see snow this morning? There's still some snow to be had out there, and a very snowy East Coast still.
We get extremely cold temperatures, which you have in the prairies, and sometimes you get fog, which will be freezing fog, and then it just sort of, freezes these ice crystals onto everything around it. It's beautiful.
Yeah, and they almost take on kind of a spiky white ice crystal appearance. Maybe you've seen hoarfrost before, but typically when we have this kind of thing, we get great photos. Yeah. You'll see them in our gallery online at theweathernetwork.com. We typically get great stuff.
Yeah.
So temperature's cold, as you mentioned,
yep.
But here's the good news. It's starting to moderate here across the west.
It sure is. And then as this purple sort of slides over to the eastern parts of the country, yes, it's going to be cold for the next 24 to 48 hours. But after that, that push of mild air for the east, too.
It just takes a little while longer,
That's
right?
right.
Okay. So
a rough commute in today because of the snow on the roads.
Yeah, I mean, typically that happens.
Yep.
And, around the GTA, it doesn't take much. We saw 1 centimeter Toronto. Markham saw 3 centimeters, but that can really mess up the roads, no question.
You know who doesn't see a lot of snow like this is Windsor. That's my hometown, Amherstburg, Ontario, 7 centimeters. So that's enough to slow things down there as well.
Well, let's take a look at where we are with our extreme cold warnings. And really, late day tomorrow, we're going to be in the most of the cold air the coldest air that we see this work week will be had over the next, say, 24 hours. Then we'll start to pull out of it and get much, much warmer.
Yeah, it's going to be pretty nice. So you look at the long range forecast, a lot of people into the minus single digits, but -4s, 5s, much more comfortable. Right into Atlantic Canada. Let's play this out because this is high pressure that's going to move in. That means an abundance of sunshine and very cold temperatures, at least while it's around. A tricky one to forecast because I was watching it on radar last night as it moved through Ontario, and the winds were southwesterly. And I thought, wait a minute, how come these winds are southwesterly? Yeah. This was supposed to stay kind of south. Well, it is a push of mild air, but there's a lot of cold air in place to work with. So even with a southwest wind, a lot of people aren't getting a big warm up. So that's why we're getting predominantly snow in Newfoundland. And here's our pattern. Seasonal in the west, frigid in the east. We'll let you know when it all moves away.
So on this 5th anniversary, here are some of the statistics related to the Haiti earthquake, magnitude 7.0 and 3 million people affected. But clearly the impact is still being felt, and it's nowhere near probably where things should be these many years later. Let's take a look at our weather across the country. We have one big player Right now, which is our low pressure system here that started in the U.S. It's making its way into Atlantic Canada. And with that, it's largely snow. However, some portions of Nova Scotia will be seeing a mix just in. But St. John's, you're going to still be seeing about 5 plus, maybe 10 centimeters of snow, and then further totals to your west. Actually, the totals to your west will likely be a little bit higher. So the temperatures, well, we're still cold in the east, but we're warming up gradually. And for Alberta, where we have seasonal temperatures building in for Tuesday.
There you go. Weather tells. A poker reference, Chris Murphy tells us. It's Sheryl and Jacqueline in with you. West getting warmer. Not quite warm enough for towering cumulus clouds, as you just saw there. But we'll talk about your temperatures bumping up. Cold's coming in, though, after it for some. And messy system in the east. Would you feel comfortable going to a resort like that? Like it's real skiing?
Yeah, I would. I would. It would just take me maybe a little bit longer to kind of build up the confidence.
Gotcha.
I think it's all to do with confidence, getting on those hills, right?
You can slide down that hill and fall, and as long as you're confident doing it, hey, why not? But in all seriousness, considerable risk today for the avalanche potential right through to tomorrow.
Yeah.
Melting temperatures, a lot of snowpack on there from the last storm, really.
And the trend is that we have seen, and now we're starting to see more of a Pacific influence, not only for BC, but really across the whole country. It may take a little while longer to reach the east of the country with regard to moderating the temperatures, but it is happening over the next many days. Last week when we looked at a map like this, everything was pretty much in purple with the exception of the BC coast, but now we can see that it's moderating a little bit.
Yeah, I've done a lot of snow tubing in my life. Skied a few times, not so great, but that does look fun, doesn't it?
Yeah, I mean, this is the time of year we have to embrace it. We're in the dead of winter now, January, February, some of the shortest but also feeling like the longest months of the year, right? But we have to embrace winter, and so that's a great activity to do that. Speaking of North Bay and up into the Sudbury area, we've got temperatures this afternoon in the minus mid-teens, but colder still as you head north.
And look at the difference here. -2 in Sarnia this afternoon, -3 Collingwood, but then -21 back toward the north. So all of that air is going to be coming in to southern Ontario. I know we don't want to hear that, but that's the truth. Northerly flow, high pressure. We have clockwise winds around a high, so that's really just bringing in some cold temperatures from the north.
Some of the coldest air really across southern Ontario will be felt over the next 24 or so hours, and then beyond that we'll start to warm temperatures up by the end of the week. So yeah, that's what we have to look forward to, but it's still that cold spell is upon us for now.
Here's the good news.
Also some mixing is happening for this area, so possibly some mixing along the coast of Nova Scotia, and then all of this precipitation gets into Newfoundland. We're going to see quite a sizable amount there.
And behind the front, it should all be falling as snow, so enough cold air in play. As that high pressure builds in for you, too, you'll see your temperatures pretty well drop right down to where you don't really want them.
10 to 20 centimeters of snow for some. And we have warming temperatures over the next couple of days. We'll see temperatures in Saskatchewan rising by about 15 degrees, which is very significant because we have a westerly influence and more of a Pacific influence, frankly, than the Arctic air that we saw last week. This low pressure system will help to also bring in more of that westerly flow, and the snow will stay to the north because it has to go up and over the ridge. And we're talking about Fort McMurray, where there might even be some fog later tonight. Back toward La Ronge, Saskatchewan, some snow. Let's go back to southern Ontario, though, now and check in with Kevin. Thank you so much for that, Kevin. The snowfall totals as of 11 this morning. We saw very cold air behind all of that snowfall today. So we do have extreme cold warnings in place across a bulk of south central and southwestern portions of Ontario. And the cold will be, actually tomorrow will likely still be the coldest part of this work week. And then beyond that, the temperatures will begin to rise. Let's turn it over to Nate in Halifax. Thanks so much, Nate. Well, the snowfall totals, as we expect them to be in Newfoundland, will bring through the Bonavista, through the Burin, and portions of the Avalon, so not necessarily in St. John's. We're looking actually up to your west and north and west, 10 to 20 centimeters of snow. St. John's will see more in the range of, say, 10 centimeters as we head through this low-pressure system, which in some cases, as Nate was mentioning, but there it is, and it's going to be just grazing by here the Atlantic provinces. Seasonal temperatures, big story building in across the west, meaning that it gets warmer, especially as we head into Wednesday, and then we'll start to feel that influence further east. Head through today and through tomorrow specifically, a considerable risk for the Rockies, the coastal range. On the other hand, some big improvements here because we don't really have much in the way of weather right now. We have high pressure that's building in, so no new precipitation to help lead to unstable conditions. So what we have in terms of temperatures this afternoon, Victoria 8, Vancouver at 7, mix of sun and cloud, some bright skies in Calgary, albeit cold, and colder still in Medicine Hat. Back up toward Lloydminster, Cold Lake, Fort McMurray, possibly some fog, and that's what that little icon is, that little squiggly line indicating some reduced visibility at times with fog. And then the snowfall totals will be highest way up to the north. But Wednesday, we're going to be about 15 or so degrees warmer than what we experienced today. So that Pacific influence will be had for you too. It's going to take a little while longer in the case of Ontario. Still lots of cold in the north, minus 15 and below, shown in purple. To the south, that purple starts to infiltrate tonight. We've got the coldest air of the work week headed in overnight tonight. Extreme cold warnings in place, cold weather alerts for the city of Toronto, Ottawa, Montreal, a snowy day today, and cold settling in for you as well. Then we'll start to turn the corner and bring those temperatures up by the time we get into the last part of the week, and it will be far, far warmer. Let's go to the Atlantic provinces now and check out into later today and through the overnight. So we're going to be seeing snow for the most part in Newfoundland with our low pressure system. Now, where it gets a little bit more tricky is down into Nova Scotia, because in some cases here it changes over to a cold rain and then back into mixing. But suffice it to say, high pressure builds in tomorrow, and it is far, far colder. In some cases, 8 to 10 degrees colder tomorrow. So frigid across the east for the time being, but warmer by the end of the week.